Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's Christmas Eve, and the countdown has started. Tomorrow's Christmas, and I hope that all is well where you are. We are told that it's going to be a low-key celebration, and everyone is advised to stay back where they are. But that hasn't been the case. The Christmas rush is everywhere. Couldn't get home early last night because everywhere was blocked, and I'm hoping that things get better as we count down as a matter of hours to Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. This morning, I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Let's turn our attention now to what many believe is big and good news. After 9 months of industrial action, university teachers now are ready to return to the class. Now, if you check social media, many students have begun to ask the questions whether or not they can even remember the last thing they were taught when they were in school. We're told that this is perhaps the longest strike in the history of the country since 1999. Well, we are told that ASUU eventually reached an agreement and has now suspended the strike that it embarked on in March over the backlog of unmet agreements between its members and the federal government. Now, the suspension takes effect this morning, and the statement, according to the statement released by the union, it's saying that the 9-month-old strike is over, but they said that it is a conditional suspension and that they will not hold back to return if federal government refuse to comply with the understanding and the agreement they've had. I have a university teacher joining me this morning to discuss some of these issues. Dr. Olukayode Suola is a lecturer with the University of Lagos. Good morning and thank you for coming.
Good morning.
Merry Christmas to you.
Wish you the same.
So you guys were away for 9 months, perhaps the longest strike in Nigeria since 1999. Would you say it was worth it?
Well, my thinking is that it is absolutely worth what it is. I want to congratulate Nigerians especially on the call of the strike, the suspension of the strike. The strike was not about our salary. It was not about our selfish interest. It was, and has always been, about making the Nigerian educational sector a viable one. ASUU wants a system which will encourage young ones to get trained in Nigeria, get retained in Nigeria, work in Nigeria, and build up the country. ASUU does not want a system in which Nigerian government will spend millions of naira to train students only for them to move away to Europe and America and use the skill that should ordinarily develop their fatherland to develop other people's places. ASUU wants the ordinary person on the street to be able to guarantee future education for his children. ASUU wants a system in which not only the children of the minister or the political class will be able to have good education in Nigeria. In other words, that the government has signaled interest in addressing the issues which led to the suspension of the strike is something that we need to congratulate Nigerians about.
Dr. Suola,
if government lives by it,
exactly what
Nigeria
I was thinking.
Much better by it.
You know, what ASUU wants is not pretty much alien to most Nigerians who can see things for themselves. It's just the way and manner ASUU goes, about it. This is not the first time, it's not the second time. In fact, it is the 18th time that ASUU will be going on strike, and perhaps pretty much the same reasons. What makes this different? Because I read the papers and I still hear words like understanding between federal government and ASUU, or we have reached agreement, and now there's a timeline. Is it not the same thing, really? Because ASUU is back in the classes, hopefully, given the COVID-19 regulations, but it's still a matter of promises from federal government.
Well, let me answer that question by saying that you do not blame ASUU for returning to class based on promises alone. Rather, we should praise the union for displaying maturity, for displaying understanding, for displaying solidarity with the Nigerian people. who are the direct recipient of the negative, unintended consequences of the strike. We should blame government for the recurrent strike over the years. We should hold government responsible for refusing to honor series of agreements that it willingly, not coerced, willingly signed with the Nigerian lecturers. And people will keep telling you that, is there no alternative to strike? The answer we've been given is, there should be. But somebody somewhere should intellectualize and suggest it. The only language that a repressive state understands is the language of withdrawal of service. And that is why ASUU has been pursuing that over the years. I hope, and I sincerely hope, and Nigerians too should hope, that this trust, this final trust that ASUU is investing on the federal government should not come out again with betrayal. ASUU did it in trust, in solidarity, in sympathy with our children. We are the only people who cannot afford, given what we earn, to send our children to universities in America or United Kingdom to study. We eat what we plant, unlike the political class, the businessmen, who have enough money to send their kids abroad to get the best of education. We do not. So if anybody feels the impact of the strike, I think it's ASUU members more. But we are saying that government has promised again. And we have decided to trust. And that is why, if you listen to the speech of the president yesterday, if you critically analyze it, you see that the emphasis is on trust. That, look, once again, we are trusting the government. They have not implemented the agreement. They have not fully implemented. Maybe skirmishes have started. But we hope that they will not betray the trust we have in them and the trust of the Nigerian people anymore, so that no strike again will occur in this system to disrupt the educational,
We're told there's a time frame for the implementation of this agreement by March 2021, and sometime by February thereabout, there will be a review of the implementation. But the amazing thing for me is the fact that you will be paid for the past 9 months that you were away. I wish personally that I can do that. I cannot leave my job and still expect to be paid. But moving away from that, I'm particularly concerned about what happens to the students who have been away from school for 9 months.
I don't think we should move away from that.
Okay.
It's something critical that has to be addressed. As public intellectuals, when we speak, we must put our speeches in perspectives. The work of a lecturer, the work of a university lecturer is not restricted to the classroom. Your work is divided into 3.
Well, the work, but the understanding we had,
teaching,
the understanding that we have of an industrial action.
When you say we, what do you mean by we?
The public.
Okay.
When ASUU says it's on strike, the expectation is you have left work and you were not working. Are you saying in the past months you were actually working?
Are you saying in the past month we are not working?
Oh, but what you said was that you were not going to work.
Then you didn't allow me to finish before you interrupted.
No, because you were trying to clarify that there was more to lecturing than teaching in the classroom.
Is that your work is divided primarily into 3.
Okay.
Teaching, community service, and research. What I'm doing here with you now is part of community service. You probably feel I am intellectual and I have what it takes to speak to this issue. Who pays me for that? I mean, driving all the way. It's part of my work. And there is hardly any day any university lecturer will sit down without doing research. It's been part of you over the years. You keep applying for funds, you conduct research every day because you cannot stay without doing it. So technically, when we say we're on strike, we only withdraw from the classroom to make the government feel.
So you're saying that all through the 9 months, research was on, community service was on.
If researches have not been going on, how have they been able to, address issues about COVID-19? The teaching hospitals, who are the professors conducting researches there, attending to patients? Oh, come on, people don't know this. So there is nothing immoral about the claim of all the salary arrears that we have to be paid. We have been working in principle. It's just that we embarked on industrial strike to make government feel the impact of their refusal to honor the agreement that they willingly entered into. I am not officially designated to speak for ASUU. The way our union works is that the president at the national level or the chairman. I am speaking as a member of the union, and the information that I have is what I'm sharing to you. We have never stopped working. Lecturers don't stop working.
Again,
you are
I'm
with your
going
computer till 12:30 midnight every day.
I'm going to just leave that and then allow people to decide form their opinion on the moral justification of being paid for 9 months. But let's talk about what happens to the students who, because they say life is spent in the currency of time. So the most valuable asset you probably would have is your time. And the students will never get that 9 months back. What is the next line of action as a university teacher, when students haven't been in class for 9 months? What would you suggest would be the strategy to make up for the lost time? Because I've heard people say, now we have to fast track the process. Is that an option that teachers will be considering at this time? And what's the implication of that on the quality of education?
Let me start by saying that we must begin to think qualitatively, not quantitatively. Students can be out of class for 9 months. Lecturers too have been out of class for 9 months. And if you know how the university system works, it is symbiotic. When you're in class, you teach your students and you also learn from your students. So what they have lost is what we have lost. What they have gained is what we have gained. The loss of 9 months is worth it if, I hope the government will be sincere, if that will ensure that henceforth we have quality education that you and I will be proud of. Have you seen the children of American president coming to universities in Nigeria? Or even Ghanaian president that you have in West Africa here? Like you raise your shoulders, I'm going to do my master's in UK, I'm going to do it in the US. Have you seen children of African president coming to Nigeria to do their master's and first degree? No, because they feel something is fundamentally wrong with our educational system. We want to stop that once and for all. Nigeria needs to take its place in Africa and around the world. Beyond that, what I think the public should be thinking about now is to help ASUU, help them.
How?
Good. The strike has gone and it has been suspended. But we must engage in the culture of never again. Never again will the public, will the civil society organizations allow the government to sign agreement with ASUU or any union for that matter without implementing, because the implication falls on everybody. Maybe this is a time also that the civil society should begin to advocate that if you're a public officer in Nigeria, your children must not attend private schools. If you are spending public money, your children should be attending Nigerian universities. If you look at the papers this morning, the Minister of Labour was quoted as saying that his children were also affected by the strike because they were Nigerians, that they had the option of sending them to the United States. I think I salute the minister for being patriotic in that direction. Let all ministers do the same.
Let me hold you a minute.
If they are stakeholders in the educational system, they will mess it up the way they have done so far.
I think it's a fantastic idea, and it's not even limited to education, even health.
Even health.
Let the leaders use the Nigerian hospitals.
Yes, let them use the Nigerian hospitals.
See things for themselves, and hopefully things get better. We don't have the details of the concessions yet, but ASUU president yesterday told reporters that some backlogs of allowances have been paid, and also perhaps what some people would consider one of the biggest gains in this particular agreement is the controversial IPPIS and the fact that federal government has now, given its nod to the deployment of UTAS, which we are told is underway. But let's join our correspondent, Joke Adisa, who's been following the negotiation between the federal government and members of ASUU for the past 9 months.
It's been a long-drawn battle between the federal government and university teachers. The leadership of ASUU announced the commencement of an indefinite strike by its members nationwide on the 23rd of March 2020. rejected the alleged use of force by the authorities to enroll its members in the IPPIS, a payroll software it described as not suitable for the university system. Other issues included non-implementation of the 2009 agreement, unpaid accumulated earned academic allowance, unpaid university revitalization fund, and the non-existence of visitation panels over the years. The impact of the strike became evident after the ease of lockdown occasioned by the outbreak of COVID-19. Then, the real standoff between the government and ASUU began. Several meetings which dovetailed into the early hours of the morning between the government and the teachers took place. But ASUU remained adamant even in the face of threats by the government until after the last meeting between both parties on Tuesday. After about 8 hours behind closed doors, the government was delighted. An end to the strike was in sight.
We've had very incisive deliberations. We've dotted some T's and I's in the last proposal given to them by government. And areas of concern have been also addressed.
But the leadership of ASUU insisted only its appropriate organ can take decision for the union.
Union is as concerned as any other Nigerian about the problems in our universities and the need to restore normalcy as quickly as possible.
In less than 8 hours, the National Executive Council of the union took a position.
Net result as follows: that the current strike action by the union should be suspended conditionally with effect from 12 a.m. Thursday, 24th December 2020.
But he says the suspension of the strike comes with conditions.
Should government fail to build its own part, to fulfill its own part of the agreement, ASUU will resume the suspended strike without any notice.
Now that the strike has been suspended, though conditionally, every government-owned university is expected to announce its resumption date to kickstart academic activities. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Thankfully, ASUU has suspended its strike, but with a caveat that if government refused to implement all of this agreement by March 2021, it will resume the strike without notice. Now, there are two more things I want us to discuss, Doctor, before we go. The federal government has released 65 billion naira to the universities to address some of the lecturers' demands. According to the Labour Minister, we are told that this will be shared in two different manners. There's a proposal for 25 billion naira revitalization and 40 billion earned allowances for all the unions of the universities. Now, if you check the front pages of the papers this morning, there's another trouble brewing. And it's not with ASUU, it's with other unions like NASU, SANU. And we are told that they have now rejected the sharing formula adopted for the 40 billion naira approved by the federal government as earned academic allowance. So ASUU is back after 9 months. Are we looking at a situation where other unions will now say, no, well, we too want to start ours? And what's the implication of this?
Let us be optimistic. Unionism is all about protecting the interest of your members. I won't blame the other unions that are talking on paper for making attempts to protect the interest of their members. But what I think is important for us to know is that we have the internal mechanism that will be used to resolve all these contradictions. If you have followed over the years, you see that ASUU is not particularly about this bread and butter allowance and allowance. Unfortunately, that's the picture that government is brandishing to the society. We have paid 65 billion, as if that money is coming to the pocket of ASUU members. No, it's all about building the universities, revitalizing the university. If you have a good structure, a good setting where you work, where learning, teaching, research, community service take place very well, even if you earn meager amount, you will be productive with it. That is the argument of ASUU. I can assure you, this money, the sharing formula, and whatever trouble that may be brewing should not scare Nigerians. We will resolve this internally. ASUU is matured enough to work with other unions to avoid crisis.
I hope that this optimism of yours has a real ripple effect. I'm going to read a quote from one of the unions to you. No union, not even ASU, has the monopoly of opening or closing of schools through strike. Payment of earned allowances should be based on unions. Two things I think I'm particularly hoping. I'm hoping that federal government will honor its agreement within the time frame.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping that when that is done, there will be the kind of picture you're painting to us now is such a revamped, university environment, a situation where the quality is upgraded, and then we'll also have people, even from the outside, considering our own universities. But let's open the phone lines very quickly before I begin to talk about, how schools will now open in the midst of the second wave of the pandemic. We have a caller from Surulere. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Ibrahim, and good morning to your guests.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning.
Okay, I want to ask you some questions. As now, they have already reached agreement with the government. The agreement which we are hearing from is their remuneration, allowances. But what about the structures in the universities that will cram people in hundreds of students in one small space to teach them? The environment for those students to learn is not conducive. Did they reach any agreement with the federal government to improve on those structures? Thank you.
So there's a 25 billion naira proposal for revitalization, while there's 40 billion naira for earned allowances. Is the 25 billion meant for the infrastructure that the caller just mentioned?
Wherever you see revitalization, it has to do with addressing the kind of problem that the last caller.
It's just that, again, we are
was
spending
talking
more on
about.
recurrent than capital.
Well, because it has built up over the years. We're talking about issues that have been lingering since 2009. If government had not neglected universities and the workers for this long, we wouldn't have this kind of figures that we're talking about. And I think we shouldn't go into the details of how this money, but what is critical for the public to know, and that should be a piece of information for the last caller, is that the main issue, to the tune of 80%, that took ASU members off the classroom into that strike, is for the universities to be revitalized. Once you have the calling to become an academic, an intellectual, a university lecturer, you have removed materialism from your life, 70%. Those who are attracted by excess material things do not have place in the university. And that is why we are never, loud about, give us salary, give us ink. No, that's not ASU. We are not like that. We want to travel to the United States.
I'm almost
to travel
convinced,
to any
but
part of the world
again,
and compete with
I
our
have to
peers.
remind you that you're not speaking for ASU. So you're speaking for yourself as a lecturer.
But I'm speaking as a member. When I said I wasn't
Yes.
speaking for ASU, I said I wasn't officially designated to
Okay.
speak, because the way the union runs, at the branch level, the chairman speaks.
Absolutely.
At the national level, only the president speaks. That's the way it runs. But as a member, I fund the union. I'm a due payer in the union. I know the constitution. I know what my union does. Whatever decision you see the president announced yesterday was first taken at the branch level, where I was, where every other person is. So I'm not a stranger to it.
Okay.
I am saying with emphasis that it's not all about bread and butter. It's about rebuilding, reworking, and revitalizing the university.
Let's
so that we
take
can be proud of our
Joshua's call from Iriwalide. Good morning, Joshua. How are you today?
Thank you, and I agree, Doctor. And congratulations to the Nigerian students and ASU. 9 months in the lives of children who are going through their education. I love one word he used, never again. So, conditional, calling off the strike conditionally. Please, Doctor, I'm using you to appeal to ASU. This should never happen again in Nigeria. Never. You see, 9 months, you are calling off a strike on the basis of an agreement. Who told you you will not renege on that call off again? Who told you? Who said there will? I mean, somebody has had the character of not meeting up your demands over the years. Now, strike after 9 months is called up conditionally again. What is the good news in that? Please, ASU should find an alternative way of getting their issues resolved. Stop this strike thing, the alternatives. I hold ASU responsible because they are the intellectuals. Their politician friends are their colleagues. So why are they not meeting their requirements? Why are they not? They drink together in beer parlor. So who are they deceiving?
It's all right.
Please, no strike again.
I think you made your point very clear, Joshua. Thank you for your contribution. So Joshua is putting the burden of alternative on the intellectuals, which also makes some logical sense. Perhaps if we go back to our...
You went to debate a motive there, and I understand his sentiment. Perhaps my son will say the same thing, that ASU should avoid. But the point that he needs to take home is that every society that works because there's a strong civil society. Organizations in Nigerian civil societies should now stand up and intervene. The churches, it is not enough to say you are doing open heaven somewhere or Shiloh somewhere. The pastors in the churches, the imams in the mosques, the babalawos, if at all they form a religion, should come up and stand and say our children will not go back for this long and longer. Government, we must be on your neck. All of the union, NSC, every stakeholder in Nigeria should help pressurize the government not to renege on this agreement so that the threat of returning to the strike will not hold. If we manage our country that way, things should be resolved.
Dr. Olukayode Shola is a member of ASU, lecturer with UNILAG. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're faced with another big challenge. It's COVID-19 pandemic. The big question will now be, will universities have the structure to accommodate students? Would there be structures for virtual learning, as we expect schools to be open anytime soon? We'll turn our attention to Christmas in the midst of a pandemic and security challenge. And our next guest is a member of the House of Representatives, and he'll be telling us what lawmakers have in store for Nigerians this period. Stay with us. And thanks for staying with us. Honorable Bashiru Daudu is a member representing Oshodi Solo Federal Constituency at the House of Representatives. He's a medical doctor, and we'll be talking about Christmas amidst security and health challenges. Merry Christmas to you, Honorable, and thank you for joining us again this morning.
Same to you. Thank you for inviting me again.
It's been a really challenging year for Nigerians. You know, it started with COVID-19, there was a lockdown, there was the NSAS protest. I mean, it's just endless. And right now, we're also now being told that there's a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's begin with that. How do you expect people to respond? Because there are quite a number of people who are only waiting for December to, you know, just enjoy themselves and thank God that, oh, we survived this. And then we're being told that, okay, stay back at home, don't travel, don't hold parties, you know, just do it low-key. What do you tell the people at this time?
I think, like you said, this is extremely challenging. This is one of those conditions that you find in once in a lifetime. You know, I know from the background of being a medical doctor. But when you look at, even as of yesterday, today, we're talking about almost 80,000 Nigerians have tested positive. So you still have about 1,300 plus, you know, the most recent statistic. So this is not really something that can be taken lightly, but it's always a balance between, you know, dealing with the pandemic and the lives of the people. It's not possible to born a village, to inherit the village. So there is no way to quantify it, and I think all over the world, this has been the situation. I think it's better for us to get it together so that we can be able to get our lives together. The ultimate solution would be the immunization, vaccination, which is available now. And looking at the Presidential Task Force, I'm talking about the Nigerian Task Force, they're projecting with the GAVID, that's the international organization that does immunization, that they're looking at about 20% of Nigerians getting free immunization. That gives us about 40% of our citizenry. So that is the solution. Now, government reaction or response. I think the Nigerian government, both at the federal and the state level, never looked into it, never thought this would happen. And I would say that leadership is how we handle crisis when it happens. And if you look at the federal response with the setting up of the Presidential Task Force, the NCDC, then on the state level with the awesome performance of the Lagos State Governor. That's why we are able to stem the tide. Now, if you come up and say now we should have restrictions, especially with the folks that are grossly affected, hospitality, entertainment, this is really, really very difficult. What I would say to them is that let's just bear it a little bit more so that we can all be better off for it at the end of this, this nightmare that's going on.
The last thing on the mind of Nigerians to hear is palliatives. Yeah. Remember how that went with the COVID-19 palliatives, people, breaking down stores and all of that. But one would have thought that a government that has people on their minds as a priority will begin to look at how to make life better for people, especially at a time like this. That was why we saw the kind of reaction we had with the NIN, where they are saying phone lines will be deactivated by the 31st of December. And, people are saying, laudable idea, digital identity, fighting double identity and digital theft. But is anybody thinking about the times that we're in, to come up with such a policy and such deadline? There's also the issue of the price of fuel. I think government removes 5 naira, but you look at the price at the filling station, it's still the same. Would you say that we have a government that is actually thinking of what to do on a national scale to help the average Nigerian who seem to have had a bad year thus far? Oh yeah, it's really awful. I mean, it's one of my constituents spoke with me this morning. He said he has 4 children, and he's looking at a very bleak Christmas. He can even barely afford to buy Gary, and then the kids are going to talk about Christmas, and he works at the bar, and they are not going to pay him until the end of the month. And they've even shut the bar now. Sure. So he doesn't, he doesn't see how the government responds or reacts to the way. I'm just trying to go into your thought in that situation. On a granular level, I mean, I don't even know. It's very difficult for us to really, really feel the pain of how people are going through. But the way governance is supposed to function is that governance is supposed to make the lives of people better. And governance that doesn't make the life of people better is aggressively challenged by the populace. There's no way around that. So on the part of governance, which I'm part of, even though I'm in the legislature, I think we need to do better. But being somebody that is in the inside, I know that with all the great intentions of the federal government and the state government at that time, it's Nigerians that will effect the policy. You still find that there are situations that when it's getting to the lower level, there are clogs in the wheel of that progress that for some reason, they don't let the people benefit from what the billions that the government is spending. But that's not an excuse. We need to figure out not just these restrictions that's coming in, but we need to figure out what next. How do you really have people to get back on track? And this is going to take time, a lot of resources and a lot of time. So before you became a politician, you were a medical doctor. Let's explore that for a bit. What do you expect people to do this December, even while they go? Lagos, for instance, it's not even limited to Lagos. The PTF is asking recreational centers not to open, restaurants and all of that. But nobody's talking about the markets. I mean, we have been to the markets, and the market is crowded, and people are not wearing face masks. It is practically impossible to keep physical distancing in our markets. But what would you suggest to Nigerians at this time? What can they do, to avoid being victims of the second wave? Well, the major challenge of the health sector now, in terms of combating the disease, is that a lot of Nigerians even believe that there's no COVID-19. They've spoken to me about that, even today. That's a lie. There's no COVID-19. That this is just a business transaction with the government, and they're trying to make money out of it. So the issue there is that when things are down like this and you're being beaten and battered and you're poor,
you tend to see the imbalance, and you tend not to trust the government and governance. At the same time, we cannot give up on our people. That's what leadership is about. It's about leading. It's about persistently showing our folks that, you know, this is the way. For example, look at polio. There was a major challenge with polio that people did not even want to take the immunization,
That's right.
which I think we're going to face again. So from education, information, you know, with folks like you, we will be able to let our people. I think the first challenge is that this thing is real. Our people don't even believe it's real. A lot of people, I think. So if we can get over that, then we can look at the situations you're talking about. Like in the market, they say, wow, I make my money from day to day. Now you're saying that I cannot come to the market. And why should I even use the face mask when I don't even think the disease exists? How do you combat that? This is extremely challenging. I think that the onus is on governance and governments and the folks that are implementing the policy to make people-friendly policies, you know, that will definitely make people to adhere to what you're trying to achieve. That's what I think about that.
So we have a situation in our hand now, and it's about our health infrastructure cannot afford to be burdened by a second wave. In fact, we don't seem to have what it takes to handle the figures, you know, skyrocket. I think it was 2 weeks ago that we recorded the highest number per day, 1,000, you know, results came in positive. But you mentioned vaccination, which is very key. You know, we've had this conversation this week. You go online and people will tell you that cancer has been with us for years. Malaria has been around for decades. We've never had a vaccine. In fact, when COVID-19 came late last year, they said we cannot have a vaccine until 2021. But here we are. There are different names being brandished. So you expect the skepticism on the part of people to say, so how did you come up with with a vaccine within a year? Do you think that is there a national position that Nigeria would take to scientifically prove, you know, to Nigerians that, well, this is not bad, you can use it? Or we're just going to take it like we always do and start, you know, using this on our
This is one area that government and governance deserves a lot of credit. And, you know, when people are so much ingrained sometimes...
Let me hold you honorable for a minute to bring in Okorafor. He's calling in from Arochukwu in Abia State. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, Mr. Nixon. Good morning, Honorable Bashiru.
Good morning.
Happy Christmas. Although, yes, Christmas is already smelling everywhere. Happy Christmas, Honorable Bashiru. Now that the honorable members are on holiday, I think there is need for them to visit their constituency at least. You know the number of local governments that you cover. At least let this Christmas, while you're on holiday, touch their lives. At least everybody is looking towards you people now as the Father Christmas for now. At least touch their lives so that your body will also smell Christmas. Now, religious leaders, they should also help us. Help us in the sense that tomorrow, Christmas, the Muslims also will be going to their mosque, respective mosque. There is need for the people, all the religious leaders, to make sure that anybody entering either the mosque or religious or shop or churches must come with their face mask or with at least sanitizer. And there is need for all the religious leaders to provide water. People at least, if you cannot, you know that there's no water in the sun, there's nothing wrong for somebody to carry one water and put water in a small, so when you go to church, it will help us. But the question now is this. Now people are shouting. There's a lot of frustration everywhere. There's a lot of stress everywhere. A lot of hardship everywhere. Agreed. He says it's global. It's not only Nigeria. I want to find out from honorable members, sir. You see, now people have been shouting because when you go to your country, you start saying about palliative. I know palliative is no longer shortcoming. At least there is need, at least for your member, at least with a phone call, please to touch people in your constituency. At least the Christmas is what? Sharing, love, and what? At least interacting with one another. Not only your constituency, not only your brother or your sister or your neighbor, at least extend your hand, the hand of fellowship. It will help us because everybody rejoice. When you rejoice, I see that when people go to bed, nobody will think about going to do anything harmful. But when somebody don't have anything, like what happened this morning, I went to the filling station to buy food. As I brought buying food, I don't know what the attendant and the man who was buying food, before he talked about it, the man wanted to free up, to talk to Victor before. I said, my friend, they don't do things like that now. Now it's a very, very critical place. Why not take it easy? Before I talk to Robinson, the man just said, how it doesn't concern me. You see, that one will show a lot of frustration that is going around the whole country. At least 70% have such place.
Right.
There is need for us to share. Sharing is very, very important. Thank you very much, Honorable. I'm very happy at this. COVID-19 is real, but this balance COVID-19, everybody has to be part and parcel of it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your contribution. So the thing about sharing is key, but I think that that's a personal thing, and some would even say that it is perhaps the biggest challenge in this part of the world, the fact that the only time we see the benefits from politicians is when they hand us down, you know, the brown envelopes and all of that. But that if politicians have done what they were supposed to do, the people in the first place will not, because there's a limit to what you can do. You're not likely going to give all your constituents $1 million naira. I mean, I'm not sure you're that rich, even though people, you know, would think otherwise. But the politicians know that the life, I mean, their own life will even be better off if they have done what they're supposed to do for their constituents, for instance.
Sure, I think it's a balance, and I can feel the pain because I've had that experience, you know, growing up. It's very difficult to talk to our folks about policy when you are facing a situation where you cannot even take care of your family and you cannot have 3 square meals in a day. That is very, very difficult. And I give it to you, that's the reality of a lot of our people. You know, even people that are selling things in the market, what's the value of what they sell? Maybe 5,000. This is what we have done in our own constituency. We've tried to do both, which is infrastructure, as well as this social, addressing the social issues that we are talking about.
I'm going to have to hold you again,
yes,
Honorable. Let's take Ada's call from Jos. Good morning, Ada.
Ada from Jos. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning.
It's nice meeting you on the show.
Same
now,
to you.
my worry about this Christmas, celebrating Christmas in the face of a pandemic is there are so many laws we put, you know, rules we put that it's not enforceable. What do I mean? For instance, now, fuel is very expensive. Then you now somebody, a commuter that is from Jos to the east. You now expecting who is supposed to carry about 8 passengers, then you say you should carry 3 or 4. Is it possible? It's not possible. Let's be realistic. Then our market, you're talking about physical distancing. How possible is it for somebody to do physical distancing in our market? We can wear masks, we can wash our hands, but that physical distancing is not possible, except the markets are staggered, or we have neighborhood markets, you understand now? So let us try, as the people, to bring out things, rules, that will be enforceable, you know. Then again, Honorable, I don't know if you you know, the problem with Nigeria now is not even sensitizing people about COVID-19. We have had enough sensitization. Let me just tell you that one. The problem is unbelief. And unbelief is a dangerous belief system. Now, the Honorable, you're in the house there. I don't know how you foresee this idea of procuring a vaccine. Can we preserve it? That's one. Number 2. That money, that humongous amount they're talking about, if they are giving just half of it even to our institutes, even this NRI in Jos, in Plateau State, and they would have worked out something, you know. Let me tell you something. Most people, see the fault of the people. Most people don't want that vaccine. I don't know, can't we take a cue from Tanzania? Tanzania as a government even don't want it. They are looking inward. Why can't we look inward? When you bring it down, and then another problem will be people not wanting to even be vaccinated. You know, so that's the issue. And the religious leaders too, please let them not even worsen matters. Even some governors are even worsening matters. Some are saying that it's a hoax. Some religious leaders on the pulpit are preaching that you don't have faith and all that. You know, if you think you're going to contract COVID-19 and all that. So I don't know. So we just have to take responsibility. That's my own advice.
Absolutely, and thank you for your contribution. Again, we're back with the vaccination. What are we doing to, you know, put the trust back in people and show them scientifically that it works?
That's a lot to unpack, but thank you for your observations. I think that, excuse me, she's right, that even from my own personal experience talking to people, what they're saying is that there's no COVID-19 in Nigeria. But what has happened here is that COVID-19 is not an endemic disease in Nigeria. That means is that it's not Nigeria-based. COVID-19 was brought to Nigeria by people that were living abroad or visiting Nigeria. And then it became communicable. The reason why it's not been exploded is because government has been great at this. You remember that the airports were shut and people were not allowed to come into Nigeria. That restricted because it's not based in Nigeria. So it's that restriction of the borders, restriction of the airports that didn't allow you to really come into Nigeria. And also the lockdown really helped. You know, no doubt about that, that we were not allowed to mingle with each other. That helped us a lot. Now going forward, if we can agree that the disease is real, yes, there's immunization. We have the Pfizer as well as the Moderna vaccines now. But thank God
talking about the Sputnik 5.
That's the Russian one. So what WHO is doing is that they want to create a balance that is just one-sided. And they have said that Nigeria should be able to get 20% of our population vaccinated free, which means about 40 million people. So when this is on board, we're going to have a lot of Nigerians ready to be vaccinated. The question is that, are we going to want the immunization like some of us?
But don't you think that government also has a role? For instance, if you bring vaccines into Nigeria, we should also have our own means of verifying what is being brought. But just before you answer that, let's take Yakub's contribution from Dokwemo. Good morning, Yakub.
Yeah, good morning, sir. And then good morning to Honorable.
Good morning, sir.
Honorable was talking about that the shutdown of our border and the flight from other countries around the world. Then, when the conflict started, yes, we did a great job, but we were not doing it in times. Why am I saying that? That time, everybody was crying that the airports must be shut down, but the government was adamant. Now, other countries are even shut down their airports from any flight from UK to their country today because of new virus there. But Nigerian governments are still adamant up to now, and then they are not telling us anything about that. But I would say that about the coronavirus vaccine, I think if finally got to Nigeria, because we were told that we may likely not get it in time. But possibly, according to the task force that the Nigerian government set up, maybe the first quarter of 2021, if we get it, I think I will applaud Nigerian citizens to go for it, to take it. But we are talking about security. If I mean 1 minute, we are talking about security because I'm talking to Honorable here. And then it is one of the here of the government. I want to tell you, sir, this is a call. If you go from here to Abule-Egba today, if your car got spoiled from Ile-Koja around the super and Abule-Egba under bridge, you were going to get robbed. Even daytime, I can tell you, if you go to Abule-Egba this morning, if your car passed there, you will see a strange guy. You will be afraid of your life. So please pass this information to state government, to Lagos state government, including the commissioner of police in Lagos state. People, they are attacking people, they are robbing people daytime, especially in Lagos and Abule-Egba.
All right, thank you very much for your contribution. Security, I think we just have to deal with that and leave. You know, I told you my experience a few months ago. Lagos isn't as safe as we would think it is. I mean, personally, I really would think that things have gotten better. Since I got to Lagos, I've never had that personal experience of being robbed. Yeah. You know, things have gotten better, no doubt. You know, because even outside Lagos, you will hear that, oh, when you get to Lagos, you shine your eye. But then, I was robbed in broad daylight in my car as well. So what is government doing? Because it boils back to government, whose primary responsibility is security and welfare. You know, just recalling that you and your colleagues invited the president of this same matter and he refused to come.
Right. Well, I think between pandemic and security, there's a challenge in trying to figure out which one is before the other one. What I would say is that the primary function of governance is the security of lives or properties of its citizenry.
Absolutely.
And actually, the pandemic is also a security issue. Now, the way to look at it, I actually look at it at the national level, being that I'm part of the legislature in the Federal House. When you have a situation where in the part of the country, a bunch of bandits, terrorists, whatever you want to call it, could just go into a village and slaughter almost 60 people like rams, then we have a problem. When you have, we're not even talking about southern Nigeria now. that bandits or kidnappers will go into a school. That's a safe haven. Talking about a state where they don't even have a lot of orthodox schools like that, and cut away more than 300 kids. Imagine if you have your family in there. This is a very severe situation. So from terrorism, which we're talking about, Boko Haram, to the bandits, to the kidnappers, and then you are actually talking about criminals, because that one is just straightforward crime. There's a lot of people that have talked about having federal police versus state police. The people that have talked about having an Motekun take care of that situation. And then you have what you addressed, where I'm not a spokesperson for the Assembly, obviously, no doubt about that. And I'm not a spokesperson for the executive. This is just my own personal position on behalf of my own constituents. Is that if you have a situation where there are motions that have been passed in the House, that the security chiefs, the situation should be looked into, that, that we should have a change, and there's no change coming from the federal government. And then you have another situation in the House, where the House got together, the one you talked about, and they want to have a dialogue with Mr. President. And unfortunately, this didn't happen. This does not engender a lot of trust with Nigerians.
In the executive.
Yeah, because
I think that just right out of your mouth, because I was wondering where you were going with regard. But we have to go. Perhaps we have to come back, because we seem to have a lot to talk about. Honorable Bashir Daud is a member representing House of Oshodi Solo Federal Constituency at the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. We say a big thank you to our viewers as well. Merry Christmas to you. You have a responsibility of staying indoors, well, not practically indoors, but keeping safe, doing everything that you should do to ensure that the virus stops spreading. We'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Do have a great day.